What if I told you that right now your colleagues might be talking bad about you and you don't even notice? Imagine the scene. You enter the room, you feel a strange silence in the air, some glances cross each other quickly, and suddenly the conversation changes subject. Have you ever been there? Ever had the feeling that they were talking about you before you arrived? This type of situation happens all the time within companies, and often the target does not even suspect it. The work environment should be a space for collaboration and growth, but the reality is quite different. In many cases, what really happens is a true silent battle, where power games, gossip, and sabotage define who rises and who collapses. The worst? By the time you realize you're in the middle of this dirty game, it may be too late. Do your colleagues look at you differently when you walk in? Do some avoid staring at you? Does the weather change when you show up? If you answered yes to any of these questions, there is something wrong. And here's a hard truth. In the professional environment, no one speaks ill of those who don't bother. If they are talking about you, it is because in some way you represent a threat. It could be your competence, your growth, or simply the fact that you excel while others stagnant. But how do you know if this is really happening? How to differentiate a simple impression from a real problem? And more importantly, how to protect yourself without falling into the traps of those who want to harm you? Today, we're going to dive deep into this topic. I'll show you the clear signs that people are bad-mouthed about you at work, why it happens, and most importantly, how to turn the tables in your favor. But before continuing, tell me here in the comments, have you ever experienced something like this at work? Did you feel like you were being excluded, gossiping, or undermining your image? I want to know your experience because this type of situation is more common than you might think. Now pay attention because the next few minutes can make you see things you never noticed before. Straight to the point. How do you know if people talk bad about you at work? How to differentiate a simple paranoia from a real problem that may be undermining your reputation and even compromising your professional future. The problem with gossip in the corporate environment is that it does not happen in a blatant way. People are not going to come to you and say, "We're burning you in the back." No. They do it in the shadows, behind the scenes, in subtle ways, and you often only realize it when you've already been harmed. But the good news is that there are clear signs, behaviors that give away when something is happening. And if you know how to identify them in time, you can protect yourself before the damage is irreversible. Let's start with the most obvious, the sudden silence when you arrive. You know when you walk into a room and suddenly the conversations stop, people look at each other and pretend they were talking about something else. This is one of the most classic signs that the subject was you. The awkward silence, the nervous laughter, the exchange of glances. All of this indicates that they were commenting on something they don't want you to know. And make no mistake, this does not happen by chance. People who speak well of you don't have to hide it when you arrive. Now, if the conversation dies at the same time you appear, it is probably because they were plotting or spreading something about you. Another unmistakable sign is the averting of glances. People who speak ill of you tend to avoid direct eye contact. It's as if they're afraid of being caught or feel guilty about what they're doing. If you notice that when interacting with certain colleagues, they avoid looking into your eyes, exchange glances with each other, or show a certain discomfort, be aware. This may be an indication that something is being said behind your back. Now, one of the most annoying signs that generates a lot of frustration, people whispering or laughing around you. This is a classic toxic behavior within corporate environments. When someone makes a mean comment about you and the person next to you laughs, it further reinforces the feeling of exclusion and intrigue. The sly laughter, the exchange of secrets right in front of you, the look out of the corner of your eye, followed by a muffled giggle. If this happens frequently around you, there is a high chance that they are ridiculing you or devaluing you in some way. But the problem does not stop there. Another warning sign you need to pay attention to is the change in behavior of your boss or your teammates. Before, you had a good relationship with your manager, he trusted your work and involved you in important decisions. But suddenly, this dynamic changes. He becomes colder, less approachable, starts to doubt your deliveries, or excludes you from important meetings. This could mean that someone has planted something against you. In the corporate world, distorted information circulates fast, and a malicious comment can destroy your professional image in a matter of days. And speaking of being excluded, this is another classic sign. You only find out information after everyone else. Before, your colleagues kept you informed about what was happening in the industry, but now it seems like everyone knows things but you. When there are major changes, you're the last to know. When a new project is distributed, you are not even considered. When a meeting happens, you are not warned. This type of isolation does not happen by chance. It could be that people have started to see you as a problem, or that someone is actively undermining your presence within the team. And believe me, this type of behavior is not only uncomfortable, it can harm your career in the long run. When you don't have access to the right information at the right time, your chances of making strategic decisions decrease. You may end up looking uninformed, uninterested, or even incompetent, when in fact the problem is that they're deliberately leaving you out. This creates a snowball where your reputation starts to be questioned, your productivity drops, and before you know it, you become the perfect target to be discarded. Now, if you identified with any of these signs, I want you to comment below. This has happened to me. Element. I want to know your stories because I know this is more common than it seems. Many people go through this type of situation without having anyone to talk to, without knowing how to react, and end up thinking that it's all in their heads. But no, it's not paranoia. It really happens, and I'm here to help you see these signs before it's too late. But the big question is, why does this happen? Why do some people become the targets of gossip and intrigue at work, while others seem to get by unscathed? Did you do anything to arouse this reaction? Or is it all just the result of a toxic environment where some people need to destroy others to feel better? The answer to this question may be more revealing than you might think, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. Have you ever wondered why people talk bad about you at work? Why even when you try hard, do everything right, and try to maintain a professional attitude, do you still feel like there are people working against you, spreading gossip and undermining your image behind the scenes? What makes someone want to harm you? The truth is that in the corporate environment, relationships are not just about work and competence. There are interests, power games, and above all, insecurities disguised as rivalry. And often, you become the target of these dynamics simply because you're doing something right. Envy is one of the main reasons why people start talking badly about you at work. When you stand out, when your performance is praised, or when you demonstrate skills that others don't have, it can bother a lot of people. The problem is not with you, but with how these people deal with their own insecurities. Instead of striving to improve, they prefer to try to pull you down. It is easier to disqualify someone than to admit that they feel threatened. Have you ever noticed how people don't speak ill of those below them? Gossip, criticism, and trying to sabotage a colleague often happen when someone feels like they're losing ground. The success of others bothers those who do not have confidence in their own talent. And the most common way to deal with this is by trying to demoralize those who are on the rise. In addition to envy, competition in the corporate environment can be extremely cruel. In some companies, the culture is so aggressive that employees feel they need to eliminate each other to secure their space. If you're growing, becoming more visible to leadership, getting good feedback, or being considered for a promotion, you can bet that someone is keeping an eye on you, and not always with good intentions. There are people who see the professional environment as a game of survival. where any advantage of the other represents a direct threat. They don't want to compete fairly with effort and merit, but with dirty strategies, and gossip is one of those strategies. Creating false narratives, distorting events, and planting doubts about its credibility are ways to undermine its reputation without the need for a direct confrontation. The worst thing is that many times this type of sabotage works. In a corporate environment, the perception that others have about you may be more important than reality, and we cannot ignore the role of manipulation in this process. Some people simply know how to play the power game very well. They build strategic alliances. They know exactly what to say and who to say it to, and when they realize that you can be an obstacle to their plans, they start working behind the scenes to neutralize you. This type of manipulator rarely attacks directly. He plants small seeds of doubt, makes subtle comments to the right people, distorts facts, and creates a negative image about you without you realizing it. And by the time you finally realize something's going on, it may already be too late. Your credibility has been shaken, your image is already contaminated, and now you need to go after it to clear your name. But worst of all is when the origin of gossip and sabotage comes from a psychological mechanism called projection. Some people, unable to deal with their own weaknesses and frustrations, project these feelings onto those around them. This means that if someone is afraid of being incompetent, they start spreading the word that you don't know what you're doing. If someone feels that they are untrustworthy, they begin to insinuate that you are not trustworthy. They don't do it consciously, but it's a way to alleviate their own insecurity. If they attack you first, they feel like they're protecting their own image. And in the middle of this process, you find yourself surrounded by rumors and questions without understanding where all this came from. And the impact of this on your professional and emotional life can be devastating. At first, you try to ignore it. He thinks it's no big deal, that it will pass. But over time, he begins to realize that his relationship with his colleagues has changed. Conversations stop when you get closer. Opportunities for growth start to diminish. People start to look at you in a different way. The environment which once seemed safe has now become hostile. And even worse, if this situation reaches the company's leadership, it can compromise their professional trajectory. A boss who repeatedly hears negative comments about an employee may begin to have doubts about them, even if there are no hard facts to support those doubts. Now, think about how many opportunities can be lost due to a toxic environment like this. How many promotions fail to happen because someone spread the word that you don't have a leadership profile? How many important projects are passed on to other people because they said you don't work well in a team? And the worst thing is that you may be the target of this type of sabotage right now without realizing it. Often things start to go wrong in our career and we don't understand why. We think it's bad luck, that we don't have the right connections, that we're not trying hard enough. But in reality, there may be a quiet work being done against you. And that's exactly why you need to be aware of the signs. If you feel that your work environment is hostile, if you notice that people avoid talking openly to you, if you start to notice that rumors are emerging without explanation, don't ignore it. This could be a symptom that someone is trying to undermine your credibility. And once your professional image suffers, reversing this situation can be extremely difficult. The big problem is that many people don't know how to react when they realize that they are being targeted by this type of behavior. Some try to confront those responsible, but they only end up making the situation worse. Others isolate themselves and end up reinforcing the narrative that they are difficult to deal with. And others simply try to ignore it, thinking that if they don't react, everything will resolve itself. But this rarely happens. What really works is having a strategy. Know exactly how to identify the attacks, how to dismantle gossip before it spreads, and how to strengthen your image so that your reputation is not destroyed by rumors and manipulations. And now Knowing all this, the big question is how to protect yourself, how to prevent this gossip and sabotage from affecting your career, how to turn the tables before it's too late. If you have been through a similar situation or feel that you may be a victim of this type of behavior, stay tuned, because now we are going to talk about practical strategies to shield yourself against these threats. If you've already identified the signs that you're being badmouthed at work, that your reputation may be undermined by gossip and sabotage, the question that arises now is how to protect yourself and turn the tables before it's too late. How to prevent these rumors from affecting your professional image, your credibility, and even worse, your mental health, because the truth is only one. Ignoring the problem and waiting for it to go away on its own rarely works. In the workplace, gossip has the power to spread quickly, create misperceptions about you, and in some cases, even jeopardize your career. But there are effective strategies to deal with it without having to get into the dirty game of those who want to harm you. The first thing you need to understand is that reacting with emotion can be exactly what these people want. When a gossip realizes that he has managed to destabilize you, that he has managed to get you off track, he feels in control of the situation. And that's exactly what you can't allow. If you despair, confront yourself impulsively, if you are shaken, you end up reinforcing the narrative that there is something wrong with you. It's like throwing fuel on the fire, giving fuel for the gossip to keep burning. Instead, the best strategy is emotional control. Show that you are not shaken, that you are not bothered by rumors, that you are above that. Gossip loses strength when it has no reaction. If there is no response, if you do not pay attention, people quickly lose interest. But beware, ignoring does not mean being passive. You need to act, but in the right way. And one of the smartest ways to do this is by building allies within the company. The more people who really know your work, know who you are, the harder it is for a gossip to destroy your image. The truth is that no one survives alone in a corporate environment. Having allies means having people who can stand up for you when you're not there, who can debunk false information, and who will alert you if they notice something strange is going on behind the scenes. And the best way to build these alliances is by being strategic. Build genuine relationships, show interest in people, be a reliable professional, but at the same time, maintain a certain level of discretion. Talk less about your personal life. Don't share information that could be used against you, and avoid being naive into believing that everyone is your friend. Another fundamental point is to understand that many times, trying to justify yourself too much only makes the situation worse. When a rumor arises, the natural tendency of many people is to try to explain, to refute, to say that it is not true. But the problem is that in the corporate environment, the more you try to defend yourself, the more it seems that you have something to hide. Rather than falling into this trap, the most effective strategy is to change the narrative. That is, instead of spending energy fighting what people say about you, focus on reinforcing your credibility through your actions. When you deliver consistent results, when you position yourself confidently and demonstrate professionalism, any attempt to destroy your reputation becomes more difficult. Because at the end of the day, those who build a strong and respectable image become practically immune to gossip. And one of the most effective ways to bolster that credibility is by making sure your presence is felt. Because here's the great truth: those who really know you, who see your work in action, will hardly believe in gossip. If you isolate yourself, if you withdraw in fear of what they are saying, you facilitate the work of those who want to harm you. But if you continue to be present, attend meetings, position yourself confidently, and demonstrate your value, any attempt to tarnish your image becomes ineffective. The best response to gossip is not to hide, but to stand out even more with intelligence and strategy. And if you think all this is an exaggeration, Think about the following. How many careers have already been destroyed not by the incompetence of the professional, but by the way they were perceived within the company? How many talented people have lost opportunities because someone planted doubts about their credibility? The corporate environment is not just about what you do, but about how you are perceived. And understanding this can be the difference between being manipulated or taking control of your own trajectory. The big issue here is not only to protect yourself, but to turn the tables in your favor. Because when you learn to deal with this type of situation, when you understand that these dynamics exist and know how to position yourself, you are no longer an easy target. And more than that, you become someone that people respect and admire. Because at the end of the day, people may even try to bring you down. But those who build a solid reputation and consistent work always come out on top. Now, the question that remains is how to take these strategies to the next level. How do you ensure that your reputation remains intact even in a highly competitive environment? Because the truth is, the more you grow, the more attacks can arise. So, if you want to learn how to completely shield yourself and ensure that nothing shakes your professional trajectory, stay with me because now we are going to delve even deeper into this strategy and reveal the next steps to ensure your success in the workplace. Now that you know exactly how to spot the signs that you're being bad-mouthed at work, how to protect yourself, and how to turn the tables without falling into the traps of manipulation, an inevitable question arises. What are you going to do with that information? Will you ignore all of this and continue to let your reputation be undermined little by little? Are you going to pretend that nothing is happening and allow people to build a distorted image about you? Or will you act, position yourself intelligently, and take control of your professional trajectory? Because the truth is that knowing what's going on behind the scenes isn't enough. What really makes a difference is what you do with that knowledge. The work environment can be a minefield for those who don't understand how professional relationships really work. Many still believe that it is enough to be good at what you do to be recognized, but the reality is quite different. Your image, the perception that others have about you, can be as important as or more important than your technical skills. If you don't know how to manage how you are perceived within the company, someone else will do it for you, and not always in a positive way. That's why those who understand the rules of the game have an advantage. Because knowing how to position yourself, how to protect yourself, and how to react in the face of silent attacks can be the difference between career growth and stagnation. And now you have that knowledge. You know how to identify the signs of a toxic environment. You know how to recognize when someone is trying to sabotage you, and most importantly, you know exactly how to react so you don't fall into the traps they set you. But I want you to tell me, what are you going to do with this information? Will you ignore it and continue as if nothing had happened? Or will you apply these strategies to protect your reputation and ensure that nothing hinders your professional growth? Because believe me, this decision can completely change the course of your career. If you've ever been through a situation like this, if you've ever felt the weight of gossip, exclusion, and sabotage, I want you to share your experience here in the comments. Not only will this show that you are not alone, but it can also help other people who are living this same reality. And if you've never been through this, but want to prepare yourself to deal with this type of situation in the future, comment below. Now I know how to protect myself. I want to see who is really committed to not letting saboteurs and manipulators control their professional image. And if this content was useful to you, if at any point in this video you felt that you finally understood what may be happening in your work, don't forget to leave your like. This is extremely important because it makes this video reach more people who need to hear it. Just like you, there are many people going through this type of situation without knowing how to react. And when you interact, when you like, comment, and share, you help to take this information to more people who may be in need of exactly this, so as not to fall into the traps of the corporate environment. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, now is the time. Here, I bring you direct, practical content that will help you position yourself better in the workplace, avoid pitfalls, and earn the respect you deserve. Then click on the subscribe button and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you exactly what to do when a coworker steals your effort and takes all the credit. Have you ever been there? If yes, then you need to watch this video that is appearing on your screen right now. Click on it, and I'll see you there.